Assalamu alaikum.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وسبحان الله والله أكبر والصلاة والسلام على محمد خاتم النبيين وعلى آله الأطهار الميامين وعلى صحبه ومن اتبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Brothers and sisters, this Jum'ah in the month of Rabi' al-Awwal in the year 1438 Hijrah, which correlates, inshallah, on December 12th of our year, will be the occasion of the birth of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And in this particular year, the date of the birth of our Prophet ﷺ takes particular significance because this dear memory, this most prized memory, comes at a time in history when we find ourselves as a Muslim community, not just in this country, but more generally in the West and in many other countries, among a true, or confronting a true challenge. A challenge that calls upon us to remember the essence of our faith and the essence of the mission of the Prophet ﷺ, and the essence of what the gift of his presence on this earth had meant, and the blessings of what his presence on this earth has meant. I start out this khutbah by reminding you and myself that the occasion, or Milad al-Rasul, Milad al-Nabi, the occasion of his birth, is also the same time that we remember that we are not celebrating the birth of a human being, we are celebrating a moment of dhikr, a moment of true remembrance of the same message that was sent to Abraham, to Moses, to Jesus, down to all the Abrahamic prophets until the Prophet Muhammad والسلام, in Mecca, the son of Amir bin Tuwab, and son of Abdullah, a child orphaned at 6 years old, to be raised by his uncles and to live in contemplation and purity of soul, to become known as the truthful one, the honest one, the pure one, as-Sadiq al-Amin, until he is around his 40s, when Allah first sends him his message and his prophecy begins, and when at that moment he falls upon the comfort and the strength of his great wife Khadija radiallahu anha, who supports him, aids him, assures him, and from there the prophecy of Muhammad begins. Critical in this, as we remember the day and the time of Milad al-Nabi, Milad al-Rasul, is to take heed and to take account of us, because the Prophet ﷺ is dead, and like all human beings, he existed on earth, performed his message, and at the end, as all of us, perished and surrendered his soul to his Maker. And what remains is the message left behind, the message that he conveys that informs us about who we are as the symbolic representatives of Risalat al-Rasul, the message of that Prophet. The Prophet, in any day and age, in any time and place, speaks through us, the Muslim community, as a physical reality. The memory, historically, can always be investigated by scholars, can always be debated by historians, but the living reality is that the Islamic message is represented through the community of Muslims. And here the Quran issues us a clear reminder and a clear rejoinder as to what we are supposed to be, what is expected of us as the Muslim community and the bearers of the memory of the Prophet ﷺ. And here the words of the Quran are clear. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَلِيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. We have made you a moderate nation. We have made you a nation of moderation. Your role is to bear witness upon humanity, and in turn for the Prophet ﷺ, for Muhammad, in the hereafter, to bear witness upon you. And so we know from the various sources of Islamic eschatology that indeed the role of the Prophet towards his ummah in the hereafter will be twofold. One is to intercede, shafa'ah, on behalf of his ummah, but second, to perform that solemn duty of bearing witness upon this community. Allah also sends us the rejoinder and the reminder that the essence of the Prophet's message, alayhi afdalu salatu wa taslim, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We have not sent you but as a mercy to all of humankind. As a mercy, a nation of moderation and a nation of mercy. If there is a gap, we must reflect upon why this gap. Whether in fact, in order to be able to bear witness, to perform your obligation, to bear witness for God, act humanity, in order to testify, in other words, to testify as to what truth is, vis-a-vis all of humanity, that entails perfecting our soul of truthfulness, روح الصدق, that we perfect the essence of truthfulness and justness in ourselves, because you do not qualify to bear witness on anyone if you yourself do not represent the essence of truthfulness and justness. And you do not qualify to bear witness if you yourself do not represent the essence of moderation and modesty. If your soul is taken to extremities, to extremes of anger, extremes of apathy, you do not qualify to bear witness. If your soul is taken to the extremes of arrogance and hubris, or the extreme of indignancy and frivolity of dignity, a sense of weak-spiritedness that comes from broken soul, again, the rule of moderation is broken. Our Prophet ﷺ left us a message that can be summed up in essences. These essences is that we live a life of purpose. We do not live a heedless, pointless life. And that we live a life of moderation. We live a life of dignity, of karama, and we aspire for dignity for all of humanity, because as Allah tells us that Allah's self, has dignified human beings. And we live a life of justness. In fact, the repeated command of the Quran is that we bear witness justly, even if it is against ourselves. And we live a life of mercy and compassion. And mercy and compassion cannot come from the aloofness and apathies of the soul. It only comes from a soul that has passion and care for others. That a soul that is thoroughly engaged in the affairs of humanity. It is not a slight burden that we bear, and it is not a slight memory that will come on Monday, December the 12th, because on that date, as we remember the birth of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, ﷺ, we must also remember his message. And remember to what extent each of us individually has succeeded in bearing this message, in discharging the essence of this message, and how much we have succeeded collectively as a community in doing so. And then we must reflect, if the answer disappoints us, if the answer fails us, then we must reflect upon how the next dhikra of Mawlid al-Nabi والسلام, must come upon us and we are in a better position. أستغفر الله لكم أستغفر الله يغفر لكم ويرحمكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله سبحان الله والله أكبر والصلاة والسلام على محمد خاتم النبيين. But most of all, the message of our Prophet was the very embodiment of the essence and character of the Prophet Muhammad himself, which can be summed up in one word: husn. The word is beauty. And that to be the embodiment of beauty in life, beauty in everything we do and everything we say, in the way we interact with our family, the way we interact with ourselves, that you are not ugly with yourself, and that's a big challenge, but that you are also beautiful in the way you interact with your family, you are beautiful in the way you interact with your neighbors, you are beautiful in the way you exist in your community, you are beautiful despite all the things that try to make you ugly in existence. It is a momentous time in history, because at the same time that we reflect upon this burden, we know that we have individuals like Michael Flynn, the expected new appointee as National Security Advisor to President-elect Trump, has written a book called The Right Fight, and this is just a little drop in an ocean, in a sea of things, that describes the Prophet Muhammad as an evil human being who has led an entire population astray. We also know that others, like the infamous Hershey Ali in the Institute at Stanford University, who, for reasons that defy reason, but reasons that make sense in the world of bigotry and prejudice, and who is rather an influential person in circles of power, have said, even to Arab leaders in meetings, leave alone the White House, that Muslims cannot progress until they realize that their prophet was a poor moral example. We also exist at a time that when our very president-elect Trump has validated the views of many religious extremists and intolerant bigots who have made a career of describing this man, Muhammad ﷺ, Nabiyur Rahmah, the Prophet of Mercy, because of the activity of fanatic extremists who we ourselves, the first victims of fanatics extremists, that Trump and his party often forget, that the first victims of ISIS and their like are Muslims. They kill Muslims, more Muslims than anyone else in the world. Over 95% of their victims are Muslims, and 5% are whatever else of other faith. But that's often forgotten, but they are taken to represent the entirety of Islam and the entirety of the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ. We live in this historical moment, and I must be honest and truthful with you. First, I salute the brave souls who took time out of their busy schedules, away from their jobs and lives, to stand outside to protest bigotry. This is what I would describe as the Islamic spirit. They have, in doing so, upheld the spirit of our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ without being Muslims. But we as a community must realize as well, if I will be honest with you, that we must get out of the ghettos that occupy and colonize our own minds. Those areas of isolation which continue to make us ineffective and unheard in society. I'll even be more direct and more honest with you. The biggest predicament and ailment that afflicts so many Muslims, including Muslims in our community, is the ailment of internal defeatism and disempowerment, which then makes us do something quite curious. We have nothing better to do than become as if quibbling lawyers, arguing about pedantic points of law when we lack the competency to do so. I'll give you an example, dear brothers and sisters. So many times when I've been the Jumu'ah, someone will rush to me after prayer and say, "Brother, your head cannot, if you're reading prayer, your head in sujood cannot reach the floor after the congregation." If that man was a jurist, I would sit and engage him in a discussion about the pedantic points of law. The consensus among the jurists is that it is recommended that the imam's forehead touch the floor before the congregation, but it is not an obligation or a fard of prayer. But it is simply the fact that at a time, and there's so much like that, or, "Brother, can you truly lead prayer if you carry a stick and is half handicapped?" Or, "Sister, your cover is such and such," or the many other pedantic issues that Muslims busy themselves with when they found themselves misunderstood, excluded, marginalized, and disempowered in society. Instead of breaking the ghettos that imprison their soul and mind and going out in society, engaging it, and proving themselves in society, they engage in these little monotonous, meaningless displays of pedantic power within their little communities. This is not persistent with the spirit of the message of our Prophet ﷺ. Our Prophet came to an oppressed mustad'afin, oppressed and defeated people, a worthless people on the face of the planet. No one was more defeated and more powerless, more worthless than the Arabs of Hijaz at the time that the Prophet's message began. Persians and the Byzantines ruled the world. He came and lifted these people from their sense of disempowerment, went to the weakest, to the slaves, to the blind, to the poor, to the illiterate, to those without a tribal affiliation and without a fancy lineage, lifted them up, taught them dignity, taught them compassion, taught them mercy, and most of all, taught them beauty. And with that, they were able to establish a civilization, not conquer a land. Warriors can conquer, like the Mongols did, but they cannot establish, they cannot build a civilization. What builds a civilization is the upliftment of the soul to the heights of divinity, to the Qudsiyya, the holiness and the sanctimony that is the divine, and the ultimate beauty that calls upon you and says, I am God your Lord. The very breath that dwells into you, as Allah tells us in the Quran, is the breath of your Lord. You, me, all of us, Muslims, human beings, must do nothing less than reach out to be as sublime and beautiful, or at least the intentionality, because perfection is impossible. But the intentionality is to be as sublime and as beautiful as your Lord Maker, as your divine Maker. As a famous Muslim jurist once put it, التخلق بخلق الله, or as Allah put it, or as, Aisha put it in a famous hadith, that the moral character of the Prophet was the Quran itself. In other words, the sublimeness of divinity. Pedantic mentalities, ghettoized mentalities, being enslaved by our own fears and anxieties about the bigotry and prejudice that surrounds us, has only one cure, is to empower yourself with dignity, to open your doors and windows and go out into your communities, engage these communities, and teach and be taught in these engagements through an interaction of love, compassion, and beauty. And to me, that is what the remembrance of the Prophet in Mawlid al-Nabi on Monday, December the 12th is all about. اللهم اهدنا واصلح حالنا اللهم اعفو عنا واغفر لنا اللهم تولنا وكن لنا ولا تكن علينا. Allah, guide us and help us attain wisdom, mercy, and dignity. Allah, beautify us so we may represent you and the message of your Prophet ﷺ more completely. Allah, empower us and grant us the compassion to withstand and respond to the bigotry and prejudice that surrounds us with nothing but kindness and understanding. Allahumma wa'afina warhamna wa qina as-salat.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله